So great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We're here for 6 ways to cover your SaaS in 2015, ways to stay safe and productive in the cloud. Joining you today, we have Melanie Sumner, who's VP of Marketing at Spanning. And then I'm Jason Hubbard. I'm Vice President of Marketing at Cirrus Insight. And today's agenda, so we'll spend a few minutes talking about some trends in SaaS adoption and challenges that we face. And then we'll give you 6 tips for covering your SaaS. And then at the end, we'll have a few minutes for a brief demo of Spanning and Cirrus Insight. And then, like I said, we'll open it up for Q&A at the end and let everybody ask any questions they have. So, Melanie, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Thank you, Jason. The first slide, obviously, we have to talk about the growing adoption of public cloud for enterprise apps, and that, these things are growing in popularity within the organizations. And last summer, Spanning conducted some research with IDG, and we found that this to be true. A lot of the core applications are moving to SaaS applications. So we saw 58% of companies were using email and messaging in the cloud, 47% for data storage and management, 33% are CRM, and 33% of security solutions were SaaS applications. So, organizations either already are there or they will be soon moving some of their core business apps to the cloud. And another recent report from Forrester estimated that by this year, 2015, there will be at least 66 different SaaS solutions in place. But if you count everything we're using today, Salesforce, marketing automation, Office 365, Google Apps, Dropbox or Box, a lot of these SaaS applications are coming in under the guise of corporate IT, but many are coming in via shadow IT. So there's a huge number of them that are unreported. So there's a lot of corporate data out there in the cloud, and a lot that is out there without IT oversight. So we're seeing with this crazy growth that our data can be at risk.
Great. And so, to give you a sense of, just how widespread this is, according to Sky High Networks, on average, there's 897 total cloud services in each organization. Obviously, that's a really high number. Most of that is being driven by mobile. So all of the mobile applications that we're all using, most of us are probably not even going to think about that as, business SaaS applications. But oftentimes we are using those to manage business data. And so, it just gives you a sense of how explosive this growth is and spread across so many platforms, and just how much of it, we're not even aware of and is outside of the control and oversight of IT. So our first tip is don't go in half-SaaSed. Establish and monitor your goals and objectives. And so, one of the very first things, for you to do in order to get on top of it is, start at the beginning. Start whenever you're first looking at deploying a SaaS application, and make sure that you're doing it right. So some things that you're going to want to, look at are, what are your goals? What are your objectives with it? What business outcomes are you wanting to influence? Are there specific workflow problems that you're solving? Be sure and pay attention to vendor SLAs and requirements. So, how viable is this platform? What type of security models do they have in place? How long have they been around? What does their financial situation look like? Are they a bootstrap startup with just a few customers, in which case, you always risk them going out of business? Did they just secure a round of, investment? And so they're in pretty good standing. Obviously go in and take the time to look at, what their user base looks like. What does their reputation look like? What type of reviews do they have? How many are those? And spend time doing your due diligence. So like I said, do your homework up front, check for references, ask the vendor for proof of their claims, conduct regular health checks based off of, metrics. And so this is, what I was talking about at first. If you go in and you've clearly defined what your objectives and goals are prior to onboarding it, then it makes it, easy and possible for you to then go back and do checks on, how effective has this been? Have they been hitting their goals within that? And part of the reason why we had me talk about this tip is, over the last year at Cirrus Insight, I've been responsible for onboarding probably about a dozen major, cloud applications and platforms for us at Cirrus Insight. Most of those have gone pretty well, but we've had a couple of them that, were pretty disastrous and actually wound up being, full-on failed deployments. We had to cancel the contract and move to a competing product. Those are costly, not just because of the money that you pay for the period of time that you're under contract with them and not achieving your goals, but even more importantly, with any company, and ours in particular, our most valuable resource is our time. And so, the time that it took us to try and onboard and then, choose that we weren't going to stick with that platform and then switch to another one and go through, those transition costs, those are all, really substantial. And so we learned some, valuable and expensive lessons there regarding, making sure that, we did more due diligence on it. And, in both of the cases where we had failed deployments, they were, arguably the leaders as far as reputation and number of customers. But if we had taken some more time to actually talk to those customers, we would have realized, some of the underlying issues. So yeah, do your due diligence and get ahead of the curve before you even deploy.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And tip number 2 is be a smart SaaS. Find a balanced approach to SaaS governance. We know that there are many benefits of moving to a SaaS solution strategy because SaaS applications usually provide better collaboration between employees and customers, and they support a faster, more agile approach to enabling new business capabilities that get you up and running and doing things faster, usually out of the box, than trying to deploy some on-premise apps that require more customization and it's just easier for everyone to use. But at the same time, SaaS buyers are facing these new challenges because SaaS is growing from those smaller point solutions, those bootstrap startups, to more large-scale strategic business-enabling solutions. So all the big apps are moving their enterprise-ready applications to cloud-based models. And so, more sensitive corporate data is going to be moving through those applications. And so as your organization is facing increased cloud-based complexity, there are potential for higher costs and reduced business benefits as these SaaS solutions grow, and the risks become clearer. To get the most benefit out of your SaaS purchase, you really need to prepare a governance-based approach. One that balances the ability to mitigate any risks, but also let you retain that agility to maximize the value you're searching for. And the bottom line here is that you need to pay attention to governance. It doesn't go away when you move to the cloud and you move off of on-premise. The same governance strategy, policies, and all the things that you've put in place on-prem apply in the cloud. And you need to be able to figure out how to take all of that goodness from on-prem compliance and governance work that you've done and apply it to your SaaS-based applications. So the key here really is to strike a balance. The balance between business agility and risk mitigation. The new breed of these solutions, the new breed of SaaS governance really helps you do that, and it will help you give you a better customer and employee experience, but also minimize major issues where you run into hidden costs or even security breaches. But you need to find a sweet spot here. You don't want to have too little or too much governance. That's the key, is just to stay balanced. A lack of governance can result in a redundant effort or high risk. SaaS solutions tend to appeal to the line of business buyers, and they're going out there and trying and buying. They're deploying these solutions under the radar screen, so kind of around IT. And when that happens, you're leaving yourself out for, it can be risky. It can be deployed quickly, but then they're also going out there with a decentralized, siloed approach, and these solutions haven't been properly vetted, and you have a lot of people out there winging it, and so we lose governance oversight here from the IT perspective. But at the same time, if you let the Wild West go and you don't have enough governance in the selection, then it can be too rigid, and you can turn off your business users, and you can be inflexible, and it's just like a never-ending cycle. So you really have to find a balance. So what we recommend is having a solid governance strategy. And again, what you really need to do first is get a hold of all the applications in your environment, and you need to really look at them all and understand which ones you really need to focus more on or prioritize, because there are some traits that you would want to put certain applications at the top of the list, and others you can address later or with very little governance or oversight. And this all depends on the scale of the initiative. Does the application touch? How many employees or customers is it out there touching? How much are you spending on it? If you're really investing a lot of money in an application, it's probably pretty strategic and important to the business, so it should be important for your governance strategy. Is it mission critical? There are a lot of things to look at there. Also, looking at level of autonomy or integration. Does the solution take data that resides in other systems, like, for example, your customer data, Salesforce.com, and is any part of that solution integrating with other processes or workflows? Or is it completely standalone? Business users are often running their own SaaS solutions typically fall short here in understanding these larger processes and don't see the bigger picture and all the interdependencies that this brings about. While standalone solutions, they require a little bit less governance. So another thing to think about is the data and security considerations. What type of data is in the solution? Is it subject to, regional compliance requirements? In Europe, there are a lot of things there we need to be aware of, or industry requirements like HIPAA and, PHI. You also have to understand what are the backup and restore requirements for the data within the application. A lot of times, and we'll get to this later on in the demo for spanning backup, but you have to be able to prove that you are backing up the sensitive data, and that if for any reason some of that data is lost, you can restore it within a set amount of time, and that it's easy to restore, and you have to be able to prove that. So depending on the type of data that these applications are housing, that will drive what level of governance and policy enforcement you put into place. But also you don't have to recreate the wheel here. You can leverage existing policies you've already set up. This will, on your other applications, you can employ those here. You don't just want to turn on all these SaaS applications with the default settings. You need to kind of go in and look under the hood and make sure you really customize them for your needs, for the policies that are for your organization. And then also make sure you're not going rogue and that you are working with the compliance team. And if you're in the line of business, to talk to IT and just tell them about it. And that way, there's a conversation and a dialogue, and everyone's aware, and everyone's usually working for the same team. So I think just bringing this out to the forefront and making sure governance and compliance stays top of mind here when you go to SaaS.
Good. All right, tip number 3, get your SaaS in gear. One of the big benefits and promises of SaaS is offloading some of that responsibility from IT onto the end users. And self-service is the way that everything's going and what we're used to. So whether that be using ATMs at banks, doing self-checkout at the grocery store, restaurants rolling out payment via iPads, you name it, that's the direction where everything's going. And that's one of the big promises that you get with SaaS applications. So understand, the role of IT in SaaS. So business users are taking on more and more of the responsibility of, deployment and how their SaaS applications are going to look and feel and work. And, one of the really nice things about this that you've seen is a move of, enterprise-grade applications that have a look and a feel of a consumer-grade application. So consumer-grade applications, are, very, very high volume businesses. And so those applications have to largely work on their own with very little training or, oversight. And so, as business applications have started moving in that direction, you're seeing more and more applications that look and feel and have the intuitive ease of use of a consumer grade application, but with the functionality, the security, and the back end of enterprise applications. This can be great when it's done correctly. But it goes back to my first tip, which is make sure that you've done your due diligence on that. So after you've gone down and you've whittled down your SaaS applications to 2 or 3 that look the best from a stability standpoint, from user base, reviews, um, number of people they have on the system, and you've narrowed that down to just a few of them, then go out and start the free trial. This is more difficult for some of the applications where they don't offer a free trial. So some of the bigger platforms, which in my defense on the failed ones, were examples of those. So we didn't have a free trial period. So in some cases that's going to be difficult to do. But when you can, do the free trial, see how intuitive it really is. Use that as an opportunity to figure out what type of support they're offering. So oftentimes, it's not just going to be, around the technology itself. It's going to be, how available are people on their team to answer questions for you? Do they offer any sort of training or onboarding services? What type of training materials are in place? Do they have up to date walkthroughs and guides? Do they have videos? How available are those resources for you? And so these are all really important things for you to look at, because as we continue to offload more and more of those responsibilities of IT onto the end users, we're oftentimes left with fewer IT resources in house to help manage these things. And so that's part of the promise, and part of what you're supposed to be getting with SaaS is the support for their product. But of course, those of you that have had much experience with SaaS applications and platforms know that type of support ranges pretty wildly. You have some applications where you've got a real life human being there that's available and is able to help you and support you, get you up to going. They've got all the resources. And then you've got some applications where they basically build it, they put it out there, and if you try and get support off of it, if you try and talk to somebody, it's crickets. And so be sure that you know what you're getting whenever you go into it.
Tip number 4, I like this one. Don't let shadow IT be a pain in the SaaS. And, while IT was once the main provider and gatekeeper of all the apps, today we have this new phenomenon, shadow IT. It's all the rage and all the news rags, and you're reading about it all the time, but it's really, really true. The lines of business and the end users are bringing in their own applications around IT, and we just talked about that. What are the things to do? I mean, you've got to figure out how to get your arms around it and understand what is deployed in your environment, where the data is going, because if you're in IT and you're responsible for this stuff, it's actually your responsibility whether you know about it or not. We just saw Sky High Networks is a partner of Spanning's, and they did some research and they found that shadow IT is actually 10 times the size of known cloud usage. So if you think you have 100 cloud apps in your organization today, they're saying you probably have closer to 1,000. So that's a little bit overwhelming. The current legacy security products, they just don't have the visibility to find and understand and control those cloud services. So you really just are kind of out there working blindly. So what you need to do is figure out what's going on in your organization, be an enabler and not a blocker. The business users are out there trying to solve business problems, so that's why they're doing it. It's not to be spiteful, but IT has started to take this shadow IT back, I think. I think now that cloud deployment, cloud solutions are becoming more and more mainstream and accepted, people aren't as afraid of the security risks. And we're seeing, bigger deployments. IT CIOs are coming in, and their directive is to just move everything to the cloud. So as this starts to happen, I think shadow IT will disappear or not be as severe of an issue, and IT will eventually take back control over SaaS applications. But in the meantime, you have to figure out which apps are in use and secure them. There's a lot of vendors out there that can actually help you do this. There are SkyHigh, Elastica, CipherCloud, BitGlass. They all offer tools, or they can come in and run a SaaS discovery assessment for you. So not only identify the applications in your environment, but they can also run those applications across the list. They have databases of all these SaaS applications, and they can tell you these are your high-risk apps, these are where you're at risk for data leakage, or these have bad reputations or bad ratings. So those are really helpful services. Some of them are free assessments. I recommend you go check them out, and make sure that the vendors you do choose are known with those vendors. So SkyHigh has the Cloud Trust network, and that just helps kind of give you the good good housekeeping seal of approval on your SaaS apps, knowing they're less risky. But yeah, first of all, you got to find out what's out there, and there's different ways to figure it out. But going out and getting someone to help just run an assessment could be a great first step. If you're smaller, it may not be that hard. You could look at expense reports and see what your users are expensing on a monthly basis. They may have subscriptions for their own app. You can look at firewall logs and look at the destination IP addresses and the domain names for outbound data flow. But all of that's going to take a lot of manual effort, and I don't know if you have time for that. The other thing you can do is just go around and have conversations with, whether if you're a line of business user, go talk to IT. If you're in IT, go talk to the lines of business and open up those dialogues. Matt, I think, will shine the light on shadow IT.
Great. All right, tip number 5, get your SaaS together. Integrate your SaaS apps. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Cirrus Insight, we make products that integrate Salesforce with your inbox. And so, obviously we're an integration company in and of ourselves, and so, this one speaks pretty loudly to us. But it's worth asking the question, why bother or worry about integrating your applications? And the answer to that is, the more that you have silos, the more that you have, data stored in multiple places, the harder it is to be intelligent about, what you're doing, and being able to see visibility and make decisions across, all of those different platforms. But the other key to it is, usability and user adoption. And so this is particularly important in, your core applications. So things like, CRM. So like I said, we integrate Salesforce with the inbox. And so, the challenge has always been, with those types of applications, how do you get people to use it? And one of the best solutions for that historically has been, creating tight integrations that work well. So we can, look at CRM in particular, but you could apply this to, just about any of your primary, business platforms. So why does the deployment fail? So CRM initiatives fail primarily due to several reasons. Lack of clear ownership of customer insight, lack of management bandwidth, lack of executive sponsorship, and lack of prioritization in IT. But the two statistics on the right are the ones that should really catch your attention. So 80% of senior executives say their biggest CRM challenge is getting their staff to use the software. But less than half of them have a comprehensive adoption strategy for how to drive that. So, the problem's overwhelming. Almost everybody struggles with it, but the majority of people don't really have a clue how to get their arms around it. And so, historically, there's been kind of two ways to kind of go about this. There's been, the carrot/stick approach, which is, you just try and force workflows on your users. And so, they're either going to get penalized for not putting stuff into your CRM, or they only get incentivized by, what you can track. So if it didn't make it in the CRM, then, it didn't happen. But neither one of those approaches have been particularly effective. And so that's where integrating can become so powerful. If you can bring down those barriers, if you can make it a smooth, intuitive process and flow. In particular, if you can get it to the point where your end users see enough value coming out of using the platform, and you make it easy enough to do that they start doing it under their own accord, because they just couldn't do their job as well if they didn't have that. Those are the keys to it. So, some questions to ask yourself whenever you're looking at integrations. How well does your technology stack integrate? Or do you have multiple silos? Like I said, these are going to be more important the more central to your business the platforms are. So, if you have a dialer platform, for instance, that's not integrated with your CRM, then that's going to be a problem because you have a whole lot of communication and outreach occurring in an area where you're not tracking it and relating it to your business records. Similarly, the problem that we solve, if most of your users are spending their day in their inbox, and that's where most of their customer interactions occur, it's where they hear from customers most of the time. That's where deals come in from. But you're asking them to, drop what they're doing, switch between tabs, go open, whatever your CRM platform is, perform, whatever they need to do there, and then go back and pick up what they're doing. Then that's a workflow challenge. And so, you've got siloed data in your email platform, which is where most of your customer interactions are happening. And then you have your CRM, which is where you're supposed to keep track of all your customers' information. Another question to ask, how tight are your integrations and how much history do the platforms have working with each other? So, this isn't a hard rule, but generally the longer that, an integration application has been in existence and has been working with it, the tighter and deeper that integration tends to be, just because they've had more time to figure out the nuances of the API, the nuances of how those systems are going to work together. They've had more opportunity and time to build out core features and functionality. And then the last question is, how well do your platforms work within your existing workflows? So again, asking people to do, workflows that are, not natural, that really slow down their ability to do business, is always going to be an uphill battle. So, it's really hard to get people to do that. Whereas, if you can create and utilize, well-made and well-designed integrations, then those processes and flows become, very intuitive, and very easy to do. And so, your adoption, your compliance will go way, way up, if you can find those ways to integrate across your different platforms. And last one.
Yes. Tip number 6 is back that SaaS up before it's too late. And this is really focusing on protecting your critical SaaS application data. That's what spanning backup is all about. As we discussed earlier, we're using more and more SaaS applications, and they're housing more and more of our critical data, whether that's your email, those are your important business documents that you're storing in Google Drive, it's your customer data and your opportunity data that you're storing and managing your business to in Salesforce.com. But the sad news is it's likely that at some point you're going to lose SaaS data somewhere along the line. And unfortunately, the SaaS vendors can't protect you from every case of data loss. It's happening, but there are ways for you to protect yourself and be prepared. Next slide. So, while IT is looking to move their core apps and services to the cloud, they're doing this because they get to offload some of the management responsibility away from IT. You no longer have to worry about things like hardware and network management, OSs, middleware, and the application itself. When did you have to worry about upgrading the latest version of Salesforce? It just kind of happens. So that's a great thing. You've got new feature functionality just rolls out. You don't have to do anything. But I wanted to share this slide with you because it shows a progression and offloading of the responsibility as organizations move their IT infrastructures and services from on-prem to the cloud. You can see where IT kind of gives up the control here, all the little things in the gray. You give up the control, which is fine. But at the same time, there's two core things that you cannot give up control of, and those are your users and your data when we're talking about SaaS applications. And if you don't have control over the SaaS applications and you don't have the visibility into what's in use, then you're actually losing control over the data and the users as well that go with it. So the most important thing here I want to talk about is the data itself. And you may think when you move to SaaS applications that you don't have to worry about the data on your users. You know, for the users, you actually still have the responsibility to provision them, deprovision them, make sure that they have the right access levels to the SaaS applications and the right access to the right data. And you want them to be able to only maybe edit or view and what they can do with the data in the applications. But at the same time, SaaS companies, you know, they protect themselves against something that might fail on their end, whether that's, you know, they all have disaster recovery efforts in place. If a hardware or software fails, there's a power outage or like natural disasters, they've got disaster recovery handled. But there are the things you still need to focus on is your data and users, and you need a backup plan. Next slide. We've seen there's a lot of evidence out there that it's common, you know, these things do happen. Aberdeen published a report a while back. 1 in 3 companies using SaaS applications have reported a data loss incident. And the causes of this are widespread. By and large, it's almost always due to user error or some type of small technical error that's difficult to pin down. 2/3 of the losses, though, are due to user error. Somebody just messed something up. You know, they deleted a file they didn't mean to delete, they configured something incorrectly. Any number of things can cause this problem. So, and we also saw 20% of the data losses due to malicious intent. Hackers, insider threats, you know, disgruntled employees. You could put two-factor authentication, other controls in there to manage access to your data. Your users aren't always protected, and there's a risk of someone coming in and not only taking the data for themselves, but they can delete the data from your end, from your side. And then lastly, we see sync errors. For example, Salesforce, you know, uses marketing automation and integrates with that, so frequently there are errors, maybe improperly configured, or some kind of technical glitch that causes a sync error and can actually help, or not help, but it can lose the data, overwriting data. Next slide. So the key thing here, I want you to remember this is really important, is that the SaaS vendors cannot manage the data. The data is your data, and it's your responsibility. A lot of people still, like I said, they rely upon these SaaS applications to back up and restore the cloud data, and they will restore it if there's an error on their side. But you still have to worry about it for your side. They simply can't do it. They have to do with your data what you tell them to do. So if you delete the data, they have to, if you hit the delete button, they actually have to delete the data. It's their responsibility to do what you tell them to do. And in most cases, there's not an easy mechanism to get that data back. You might delete emails and empty the trash bin or the recycle bin. But if you say, oops, can you go back and get that for me? They can't. It would be onerous for them to do so. So they're internally focused on their internal issues. If the server goes down or they're working to keep secondary or tertiary storage systems available, it's all focused on their end. But in many cases, if the data is deleted, it's not recoverable. Salesforce knows that your data is business critical, and if you lose some of that Salesforce data, you can ask them to restore it. They'll go back and go off the tape and get it for you, but they actually have a policy that it will, you know, if they have to go back and restore data for you, it starts at a minimum of $10,000, and it's just a best effort. It's not a guarantee, so it's expensive and it's risky, and it can take time. It can take up to 2 to 3 weeks for them to go back and get that data, and in the meantime, you're not able to access your customers' data while you wait. So that's what this is all about in the SaaS world. User errors, malicious intent, sync errors. Those kinds of data loss events will prevent you from transacting your business, and you need to stay up and running and productive at all times, and that's why it's important to have a third-party backup of your cloud application data and make it easy for your end users to go and find the lost data and restore it quickly so that you're not having the help desk get flooded with calls to help recover lost data. So with that, I think, you know, it's a perfect segue into, Jason, if you don't mind, we'll just show a quick demo of spanning backup in action. since it is tip number 6 and we're
Yep.
here. I've got Matt Hamlin here with me. He is the Director of Products at Spanning, and he's going to give you a quick overview, real quick, of Spanning Backup and then a nice little demo.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks. This is Matt Hamlin, Director of Products, and just a little bit about Spanning. We provide cloud-to-cloud backup service for SaaS applications such as Salesforce, Google Apps. We're also working on Office 365 right now. So I kind of wanted to start off and discuss a little bit and kind of add on to what Melanie just said, which is that the reason backup is necessary for SaaS applications is that they're very good at running an application, making sure it's highly available, scalable, secure, all those things that your on-premise solutions had that your IT organization was responsible for. They're really good at that. But clearly they state across their SLAs and in their words and the services they offer to do recovery, the data is your responsibility. They will do with it what you tell them to do. So if you tell them to delete, change a record, move data around, they will do that, right? They're good at running the application. And so I just want to go through a few features in our Salesforce product and in our Google product to demonstrate some of the things we talked about today. So here you see this is salesforce.com. I'm going to start off by showing you a quick way that an end user or administrator could restore data in case of a loss. So in this case, we're just on a normal account in Salesforce. So if you have an end user who's working throughout the day, whether it's on their sales floor or the marketing team, and they come in, they're making changes to the data here. I know that our sales team here will have 2 or 3 or 4 windows of Salesforce open because they're making calls and discussing with different people, and they've entered data into the wrong accounts at certain points in time. But if you come in and you change the description or any of these other fields, and this is a demonstration environment, so not very much data here, but we have some customers that have hundreds of fields here on the account record. As soon as you hit save, whatever data was there before is pretty much gone, right? Salesforce is a CRM application that maintains data about different things: accounts, leads, contacts, opportunities, custom data, custom objects, integrated objects, and information. But it's pretty much a real-time application. So the data I had before, I changed and hit save, and now it's pretty much gone. So some customers that we speak with and talk to have make use of Salesforce's weekly export of the data, which is where you can download the data once per week. And so if this was a mistake that just happened on the sales floor, for example, you might be able to get that data back. Probably not if it's been changed any time between now and less 7 days. And so our goal is to make it very, very easy to recover from this type of kind of daily data loss that happens when performed by end users who have proper rights to use this data, right? Your Salesforce and sales team needs to be able to change data on an account or a contact or various things here. So what we've done is we've given our customers the ability to quickly restore data. So there's a button here. This is added by Spanning Backup. They can click Restore. And this will show them at the field level the differences between the current version of the Salesforce record and in any of the previous versions we've ever backed up in the past. As you can see, the current version has this as the description, here's the phone number, here's the website, right? Those are the 3 things I just changed. So if I want to return that data, all I have to do is come here and select the field level items that I'd like, say Restore. This is a confirmation screen, confirming the action is getting ready to happen, and then click Restore. So that's going to put the data back just the way that it was. And again, that can be done from any of our point-in-time backups. The service itself is automated daily backup of all the objects, custom objects, attachments, content, chatter posts, everything that we can pull out of Salesforce and protect for our customers we do. So that's just a quick and easy way to show that your government's requirements around protecting data and restoring them can be proven by doing that for an internal auditor. The data is protected and highly available. All right. And so when that happens, another view that we provide for our the administrators of Spanning Backup for Salesforce is around backup status, full visibility into all the actions that have taken place. Again, when you move data, especially critical data like this, to a cloud application like Salesforce, you have to make sure it's protected. It is your responsibility. It is your data. And so we give administrators clear visibility into the backup process, show that if every night during the backup process, whether it was successful or not, you can go to any point in time in the past and show that it was successfully backed up, drill down, see what was in part of that, to ensure that whenever you do need that data, it is readily available for you to go retrieve and restore. All right. All activities are also audited. So in case your internal audit teams or external audit teams say, show me you're backing things up, show me that you're restoring data, and you're restoring data still with the proper rights that you had in place in the first place. So you can go in and see the restore that just performed is here. It says this person restored data down to the field level. This is what they restored and what was changed and by whom. Okay. There you go. Very similar in our spending backup for Google Apps. We're focused on enabling administrators to have trust in the backup process itself, showing them at a very granular level what was backed up, and more importantly, what was not. If there's any errors that occurred during the backup process, if there are certain data types in their Google Apps environment that we just can't back up, and there are some of those things out there, we want to show them that and inform them of that. And so here, this is the status page where the administrator can go in and quickly see, what's been backed up and what, if anything, has failed to back up. So you can see the details here at the entire domain level or down to the end user level. You can drill in and see the details of these as well, and see at the line item what might be an issue with the backup process. Also important from a governance and audit standpoint is who's performing and managing that data in the backup product. Right? When data is fully backed up and protected, who has access to it? Right? Because it's also corporate data that needs to be protected and have some oversight around. And so in this case, in our audit log, we were very, very detailed about the data that we manage within spending backup. We'll audit every transaction against that data. So if an administrator logs in and restores data on behalf of a user, that's tracked. It's tracked down to the actual item level. So if I expand this out here, you can see that we restored data from one account to another. It actually says there's 2 items that were restored. I could click and download a file that shows exactly what was restored, by whom, to what account, what time, what the contents of that was. Again, it's all around making sure that you have full visibility into the process, into the data, be able to prove that you have control over it during the entire life cycle, entire process. And the last thing I'll show here real quick is the end user enablement. Before we've talked about part of moving to a SaaS application is understanding or empowering your end users, right? They're starting to use things like Dropbox and Salesforce, and they're gaining a lot more control over that data and the business functions necessary to use that data. Backup and recovery is no different, right? We're innovating in the space by allowing end users to quickly find the data they lost and restore it in Salesforce and Google Apps as well. And they're coming to expect that, right? You're putting the power of SaaS applications into their hands, allowing them to use things like Google Drive, Salesforce Mobile, right? Do things on the go, Office 365, and they're getting used to that, right? And so as those things happen, they expect to be able to do more and more with that data. Your IT team's probably shrinking a little bit as things move to cloud applications as well. So by empowering them to find lost data and recover it themselves, they're more satisfied, they can get back to work much quicker, and you reduce the cost on IT from a support standpoint, right? And so in our Google Apps product, this is the user interface for an end user. As you can see, we've built the interface to be very much focused on ease of use. So the mail restore user interface looks like a mail client. The Drive restore interface looks like a normal Drive UI, making it very, very easy for them to find and restore data quickly and get back to work.
Great.
Matt.
Thanks, Matt. Let's take the screen back over. Melanie, did you want to do your last couple of slides?
Yeah, so just to give you a summary, spanning backup, we are one of the industry's leading cloud-to-cloud backup and restore solutions, and we currently offer backup for Google Apps and Salesforce today, and we're also in the beta phase for backup for Office 365. That will be fully available in the second half of the year, but right now we are taking beta customers. If you're interested, just visit the website and you can sign up, and we'll talk to you about that. But, you know, that's what we're focused on, is just protecting the data that's up in the cloud and then making it accessible to the end users for them to manage their data and restore it. You could do we do automatic daily backups for all the data in those applications, and then we also allow point-in-time restore. So any point in time you can go back and restore the data. And you can also run an on-demand backup. You know, I know for Salesforce, if you're just using the weekly export that's once a week, a lot can happen in 7 days. So in Salesforce, you know, it's nice to have a daily backup. But also if you're running a lot of things, doing some work in Sandbox and just experimenting, you might want to push an on-demand backup right then and there and get a snapshot of all your data just to be safe. So those are the things that we do. Please take a look at our website to learn more. You can also get a free trial of Spanning Backup for Google Apps on the website, or you can also go to Salesforce App Exchange to try out Spanning Backup there. And we just released last week, just in time for Valentine's Day, the 9 ways to make your auditors love you, an ebook. So it's not a fun book, but it also provides a lot of good information on some of the things that we just covered today. So,
great. All right, I'll take a few minutes and show a quick demo of Cirrus Insight. So Cirrus Insight works with Gmail, Google Apps, Office 365, and Outlook 2013. So it's going to look a little different on the Outlook side. Here it is in Gmail. So as you open an email from somebody, you're going to see Cirrus Insight, the side panel over here on the right. We're going to give you a snapshot summary of who this person is in Salesforce. So contact information, upcoming and previous activities, open and closed opportunities, open and closed cases. With all of this information, you can drill down into it. So you've got the full contact record. You can edit any of this inline. So you can go in and update, you know, address, phone number, whatever you need to. One of the really cool things with Cirrus Insight is we bring over and interact with all the ways that you customize Salesforce. And so that also includes third-party applications. So out of the box, we integrate and work with most of the third-party applications on the Salesforce App Exchange. Anything that works by creating custom fields, custom objects, or custom buttons in Salesforce will natively integrate with. And so a great example of that is Pardot, which is what we use for marketing automation. And so we're pulling over all of the custom fields that Pardot writes to. And so as my reps get, you know, emails from customers, they're just a click away from being able to see, you know, all of this valuable marketing automation intelligence right inside the inbox. So, you know, where did they come from? What campaign are they part of? What's their score? Even being able to click directly over to their profile in Pardot. Activities, so we'll bring over all of the open and closed activity history. You can view details on all of it. You can go in and edit any of those in line. You can create new tasks, new events. You can log calls. You can also manage your entire deal flow. So you can create new opportunities as they come into your inbox. You can go in and edit and update existing opportunities, advance the stages, you know, all the way from, you know, value proposition through, you know, negotiation, closed won, closed lost. You can see, you know, historic closed opportunities. And similarly on the support side, you can manage your entire case flow right here using Cirrus Insight. So you can create new cases, you can escalate existing cases, you can close those out. And we even have support for all of your custom objects. So these are related lists off of the lead and contact record. This is obviously going to look different for everybody based off of how you've customized Salesforce. But the upshot is most of us that, you know, are built heavily on Salesforce, we have that thing in Salesforce that's really how the business runs. For us as a software company, those are licensed users. And so we can do full license management right here from Cirrus Insight without leaving the inbox. So we can spin up a new license, we can change their status, so we can activate them, we can extend their trial, we can cancel them out, and so we can manage literally the entire company. Email functionality, so we make it quick and easy to save emails to Salesforce. So again, back to what I was talking about with silos of communication. So you have all of your communication that's going on with your customers in the inbox, but you want to get that data into Salesforce. You've got two options. You can do a quick add. That's going to save that email into Salesforce and relate it off of the contact and account record. Or you can add to Salesforce, and this brings up this dialog box and allows you to specify exactly how you want to save that record into Salesforce. So you can choose any object, standard or custom. We'll display any matching records off of that object. So you can go in and associate it off of the opportunity that this email is about. Or if it's a new opportunity, you can go and create that opportunity right here from the Add to Salesforce dialog. So you don't have to go and interrupt your workflow. What you're seeing here is support for record types. So we have two types of opportunities you can create in Cirrus Insight. And that's to say, all of the ways that you've customized Salesforce, we're going to bring those over. So the way that you've configured your profiles, the way that you've restricted permissions, all of that's going to be honored in Cirrus Insight. So if you can do it in Salesforce, you can do it in Cirrus Insight. If you can't do it in Salesforce, you're not going to be able to do it in Cirrus Insight. So we honor exactly how you've set that up. Two things on the outbound email side. And these are really exciting features that have worked together closely. You can track emails. So you send an email, we'll track that email. We'll let you know with a real-time notification when that email gets opened. You can also go over here and see, your open history. So you can see emails that you've sent that were recently opened. You can see emails that you sent that are unopened. You can see emails filtered based off of a specific person that you've emailed to. And this works closely with email templates. So we bring over Salesforce's email templates into Gmail. And so you can go in, you can pull up templates. And then the really cool thing is if these email templates have been used by anybody in your company and then have been tracked, then we'll report on what your open percentage is with that email template. So you can quickly and easily see which templates are performing better than others, do A/B testing on it, figure out, is this one better than another one? Do you need to go in and tweak the subject? But whenever you selected the template, you hit merge. We'll merge those fields. So here we brought in Bobby's name. You can go in and customize it, make it look personal, and then whenever you send it, we'll track that email. One last piece on it. This is a bit of a whirlwind tour, but we also integrate with Google Calendar as well as Outlook Calendar. And so we have a two-way bidirectional calendar sync. So that means that anything that you create in Google Calendar or Outlook Calendar will get synced over to Salesforce, and vice versa. Anything that you create as an event in Salesforce will get synced over to your calendar. The really cool thing that we do, and we're the only ones that do that, is we'll maintain all of those people that you invite to the event in the calendar as we create that event in Salesforce. So, spin up a calendar invite in Google Calendar, invite a bunch of people to it. When that event gets created in Salesforce, we'll automatically relate that to all of those people. So you maintain all of that valuable context. We also do a contact sync, so that's a one-way sync from Salesforce into Google Contacts. Most people don't want a bidirectional sync into Salesforce because our data quality is not as great on our mobile devices, et cetera. And then one last piece as far as getting new people into Salesforce. So what happens when you open an email from somebody who's not in Salesforce? We'll prompt you. We'll say, hey, this person's not in there. Would you like to create a lead or create a contact? So you can do that. And then the really cool thing that we'll do is we'll scan that email. We'll find the email signature and we'll parse that signature. And so we'll pull all the information we can out of that. In this case, you can see we found name, title, phone number, email address, and address. Ask if you want to use those values. You can go in and add any additional information. But the upshot of that is, for the most part, creating new leads and new contacts in Salesforce, if somebody's taken the time to build a good email signature, is literally as easy as a button click. So great way to be able to stay on top of all of those people that you're communicating with in your inbox. So that's a whirlwind tour of Cirrus Insight. There's a lot more there to it, but let's give ourselves a few minutes here at the end to open it up for Q&A. So, questions. Melanie, this is one for you. What is the purpose of the API metric on the dashboard for spanning?
Sure, this is Matt. I'll answer that. Yeah, at the bottom. So spanning backup for Salesforce, we allow the customer to control the number of API calls that spanning backup will make against their Salesforce environment every day. The different SaaS applications have different rules around how many API calls you can make, and in Salesforce, the number of API calls is tied to the customer's subscription. And so this just gives them a way to limit the number of API calls we use that they're paying for, honestly. And we don't ever want to be responsible for them running out of API calls. And so what happens is when you set that, once we hit the limit, if we hit the limit during a day, we'll just kind of pause what's going on in the product and then pick up the next day. And that way it lets them, just gives them control over that aspect of their environment.
All right. Looks like somebody signed up for the Office 365 beta and got an email saying that you're not taking beta users.
Sure, this is Matt. I'll take that again. Yeah, we've gotten a lot of response around the beta for Office 365, and so we're discussing with the customers their needs, and we're actually going through and making lists of people that are in the beta currently, which I think we're kind of full on our first cut, and then be able to go back to people that also showed interest and move through the list as the beta progresses. So we may do a second outreach for beta 2, we'll call that, and bring more people on as we get further down the path. But yeah, if you'd like to email me directly after this, that would be just fine.
Okay. Somebody asked if the deck will be available. Yes, we'll send out an email with a link to both the deck and the recording of the webinar. Let's see. What is the standard for annual price increases for SaaS applications? For example, marketing automation tools for Salesforce. I'm not sure that there is a standard. Melanie, do you have?
I don't know that there's a standard either. I think if you just kind of go with the demand and what people are willing to, the value that they're getting out of it, and I think it's just that.
Yeah, this is Matt. I think it's interesting. I think that over time you may see a reduction in price, honestly, right? Because a lot of the cloud services that are out there, there's for a few of the different services, there's a clear leader, right? In that, whether it's Salesforce for CRM, even in cloud infrastructure like Amazon, clear leader, right? And the pricing is what it is, but over time there's been entrants, especially for like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and the price of those services are continuing to go down as the competition has come up. And so it just depends. I think it depends on the service, it depends on the amount of features and complexity, the time it takes to integrate with and set up that service itself, but I don't think there's really a standard.
And they're different. It seems like there are different pricing models, whereas you price per user or amount of data being used or consumed or transactions taking place or
API
even it's just now we see, some people are just looking for a site-wide price rather than number of users or seats.
Cool.
So there's not a standard. There are no standards. It's still the Wild West.
Absolutely. Jay Tannenbaum is asking, the spanning restore button's not available. It is custom objects. Can it be added to the custom objects?
It can be, yes. So by default, spanning backup ships with buttons that can be added to accounts, leads, contacts, and opportunities. And in the installation instructions administrative guide, it talks about how you can create buttons and put onto any of the primary objects or custom objects as well. The way the Salesforce works internally is when you create a button, you have to say which object it goes with, right? So that's why we ship kind of 4 out of the box and kind of give you instructions on how to build buttons. It's a straightforward process. And yeah, if you have any issues with that, please reach out to me or just talk to our support team who can help with that.
Right. And we're officially over time. If anybody else has any more questions, we'll certainly answer them. Does spanning back up Salesforce data on a schedule or on edit? I think
backup data on a schedule?
Yeah, so it's automated nightly backups. It's not a schedule set by the customer, but it is automated and nightly. You can also do manual backups at any point in time. There's a button right on the dashboard that says Backup Now. As Melanie mentioned earlier, we have a number of customers that will use that before they import a large set of new leads or change the definition of an object or integrate a new third-party application, right? So before you do anything that's a large change that might affect your data or affect the data structure, which affects the data, you can push that Backup Now button anytime you like.
So what happens if a record's edited multiple times in a day?
Yeah, so if a record's edited multiple times during the day, we won't catch all of them, right? We're doing automated daily backups of those, which gives you the ability to roll back to at the most a day. If you're doing some manual backups during the day, you can improve upon that as well. But it's a huge step over the 7-day weekly export that you get from Salesforce, and it covers more of the day.
Absolutely.
And one more question. Google Apps offers data restore for Gmail and Drive. What's your advantage?
Sure, absolutely. That's a great question. Yeah, the restore in Gmail and Drive that Google provided, they launched late last year, it's administrative restore. It only goes back 25 days. It's blind restore. You just say anything that was deleted in Gmail or Drive in the last 25 days for a user, put it back. You don't get to look at it. You don't get to know what happened. You don't get to see what got put back. You don't know if it went back in the right place or not. You don't know if it went back with the right metadata or not. So it's kind of a blind restore process.
And the end users can't do that.
And the end users can't do that. That's exactly right. We aim to do full point in time. So you can literally go back to any point in time, see what your Drive contents look like, your Drive structure look like, what the folder structure look like. Select a file, 100 files, a folder that's nested with 7 other folders underneath it. And just click a button and say it goes back. It's fully tracked. It's available to the end user itself. And again, the point in time has become very important amongst our customer base. You have shared folders that get messed up just structure-wise by many, many people working on the data and moving things around or having access where they can delete something and it affects everyone else. We've had the customers get things like the CryptoLocker virus where everything is encrypted. The other thing too, right, is that most of those use cases I just talked about are changes to the data which weren't deletes. Right? A lot of things that can happen to destroy data or make data unusable without a delete. And so in the case of the Google service, it is 25 days, admin only, blind restore, only for things that have been deleted. Yeah.
Got it. Last chance for anybody to ask questions. All right. Well, thank you guys for being on and presenting, and thanks everybody for joining us. And
thank you, Jason.
Like I said, we'll be following up with a link to the recording as well as a link to the deck. And don't hesitate to reach out.